Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, the assassination of Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Caliph of Islam, remains one of the most significant and debated events in early Islamic history. Umar was assassinated in 644 CE, 23 AH, while leading the Fajr, dawn prayer at the Mosque of Medina. Let's break down of the historical accounts, theories of conspiracy, and the broader implications of his murder. Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Caliph of Islam and one of the most influential leaders in early Islamic history, met a tragic end when he was assassinated in 644 CE during the Fajr dawn prayer at the Mosque of Medina. The assailant was Abu Lu'lu'a, also known as Firoz Nahavandi, a Persian slave who had been brought to Medina and worked as a skilled craftsman. Abu Lu'lu'a approached Umar during the prayer with a concealed weapon, a double-edged dagger, and stabbed him multiple times in a shocking and violent attack. The injuries were severe, and despite medical attention, Umar succumbed to his wounds 3 days later, leaving the Muslim community in a state of grief and uncertainty. The motives behind Abu Lu'lu'a's actions have been a subject of much debate among historians and scholars. It is widely believed that Abu Lu'lu'a bore a personal grudge against Umar due to a dispute over taxation or labor obligations. As a slave, Abu Lu'lu'a worked under an Arab master who had imposed demanding tasks on him. When Abu Lu'lu'a approached Umar to seek relief, he felt that his grievances were dismissed, deepening his resentment. This personal animosity, however, might not fully explain the assassination, as the broader context of cultural and political tensions during Umar's reign provides additional layers of complexity. The assassination of Umar occurred during a period of rapid Islamic expansion, with the Muslim Empire extending its reach into the Persian, Sasanian, and Byzantine territories. Umar's leadership had been instrumental in conquering Persia, bringing about significant changes to the region's political and social fabric. Many Persians, including members of the former ruling elite, viewed the Arab conquest as a humiliating loss. Abu Lu'lu'a, as a Persian slave, may have harbored nationalist sentiments or sought revenge for the defeat and subjugation of his homeland. His act of violence against the Caliph could thus be seen as an expression of broader resentment within the conquered population. While Abu Lu'lu'a acted alone, there are theories suggesting that his actions might have been influenced or even orchestrated by other parties. The rapid expansion of the Muslim state had created tensions within the Arab Muslim community itself. Umar's governance emphasized equality and justice, often at the expense of the traditional tribal elites who felt their privileges eroded. Some factions within the Quraysh, the tribe of the Prophet Muhammad, might have viewed Umar's reforms as a threat to their influence and could have tacitly encouraged opposition to his rule. However, no definitive evidence links Abu Lu'lu'a's actions to any organized conspiracy. Umar's death marked a critical turning point in Islamic history, as it exposed underlying fractures within the community. Despite his strong leadership, the diverse and rapidly growing empire he presided over faced challenges in maintaining unity. His assassination brought these tensions to the forefront and underscored the difficulty of governing a vast, multi-ethnic state with conflicting interests. Before his death, Umar established a council of 6 prominent companions of the Prophet to choose his successor, a move that sought to ensure a peaceful transition, but also highlighted the growing complexity of leadership in the Muslim world. The aftermath of Umar's assassination saw the rise of Uthman ibn Affan as the third caliph, chosen by the council Umar had appointed. However, Uthman's rule would eventually lead to further divisions, as allegations of nepotism and favoritism fueled discontent among various factions. The seeds of discord planted during Umar's time would later culminate in the first major civil wars within the Muslim community, altering the course of Islamic governance and politics. Umar's death, therefore, was not just a personal tragedy, but a moment that signaled the challenges of maintaining unity in a rapidly transforming empire. Abu Lu'lu'a's fate was sealed shortly after the assassination. In the chaos that followed, he attempted to flee, but was overpowered and either killed by bystanders or took his own life to avoid capture. Despite his death, his name would live on in Islamic historiography as a controversial figure. Sunni traditions view him as a villainous murderer who disrupted the unity of the Muslim community, while some Shia traditions interpret his actions as resistance against a system they believe marginalized certain groups. This divergence reflects the deep sectarian divides that would develop in the centuries following Umar's death. The assassination also brought to light the vulnerabilities of leaders in the early Islamic period. Umar, who had lived a life of simplicity and accessibility, often moved among his people without a formal guard. This openness, while reflective of his commitment to justice and accountability, also exposed him to personal danger. His death prompted future leaders to adopt more stringent security measures, signaling a shift in the way political authority was exercised in the Muslim world. The broader implications of Umar's assassination extend beyond the immediate political turmoil. His reign was characterized by significant administrative and social reforms, including the establishment of a welfare system, the codification of laws, and the creation of a centralized treasury. These achievements solidified the foundations of the Islamic State, but also created friction among those who felt alienated by his policies. His assassination thus symbolizes not only the personal vendetta of an individual, but also the broader struggles of integrating diverse peoples and interests within a single political framework. In the end, Umar's assassination was a pivotal event that highlighted the complexities of leadership in a rapidly growing empire. His death was not just the result of one man's grievances, but a culmination of personal, cultural, and political tensions that had been building for years. The legacy of his rule, however, endures as a testament to his vision for justice, equality, and the challenges of governing a diverse and expansive community. Why did Abu Lu'lu'a kill Umar? Personal grievance. Abu Lu'lu'a, a Persian slave who served as a skilled craftsman in Medina, reportedly bore deep resentment toward Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. Historical accounts suggest that this animosity stemmed from personal grievances related to his treatment under his master. Abu Lu'lu'a's owner, a prominent figure named al-Mughira ibn Shuba, imposed heavy demands on him, requiring him to pay a daily tribute or tax in return for his ability to work. This financial burden weighed heavily on Abu Lu'lu'a, who found the expectations oppressive and unjust, particularly as a slave with limited means to negotiate better terms. He believed that Umar, as the leader of the Muslim community and a figure responsible for upholding justice, should have intervened to alleviate his plight. When Abu Lu'lu'a approached Umar with complaints about his situation, he reportedly sought relief from the onerous terms of his labor. Umar, however, dismissed the matter, arguing that the tribute was fair given Abu Lu'lu'a's earning capacity as a skilled artisan. This response likely deepened Abu Lu'lu'a's resentment, as he may have interpreted it as an endorsement of his exploitation rather than an attempt to address his grievances. The perception of neglect or indifference on Umar's part turned personal frustration into a more profound sense of betrayal, intensifying Abu Lu'lu'a's anger. The dynamics of this situation were further complicated by the broader socio-political context of the time. As a Persian living under Arab rule, Abu Lu'lu'a may have felt alienated and marginalized within a society that often prioritized Arab interests. The defeat of the Persian Sasanian Empire by Umar's forces had already disrupted Persian society, and individuals like Abu Lu'lu'a, reduced to servitude, bore the brunt of this upheaval. His personal grievances were likely exacerbated by the collective humiliation and loss experienced by Persians, contributing to a sense of injustice that extended beyond his immediate circumstances. Abu Lu'lu'a's grievances, therefore, were not merely economic, but deeply intertwined with questions of identity, power, and dignity. As a craftsman with notable skills, he might have expected recognition or better treatment, yet he found himself constrained by a system that left little room for personal agency or fairness. This discontent, combined with the lack of a meaningful resolution to his complaints, pushed him toward desperation. Umar's refusal to address his concerns, may have symbolized, in Abu Lu'lu'a's eyes, the systemic failures of the leadership that presided over an unequal and often harsh social order. Ultimately, Abu Lu'lu'a's actions on the day he assassinated Umar appear to have been driven by a culmination of personal frustrations and broader grievances. His act of violence can be seen as a response not only to his individual suffering, but also to the larger dynamics of power and subjugation that defined his life under the Caliphate. While the exact details of his motivations remain subject to interpretation, it is clear that his personal grievance against Umar was a critical catalyst for his decision, reflecting the complex interplay of personal and political factors in this pivotal moment of Islamic history. Cultural and political factors. Abu Lu'lu'a, as a Persian, was emblematic of the deep cultural and political upheavals that followed the Muslim conquest of Persia. The Sasanian Empire, once a bastion of Persian culture, wealth, and power, was dismantled during Umar's caliphate, leading to the subjugation of its people. For many Persians, this conquest was not just a military defeat, but a seismic cultural loss. The ruling elite, who had once enjoyed immense prestige, found themselves stripped of their status and integrated into a new socio-political system dominated by Arab rulers. This rapid and profound change bred resentment among many Persians, who viewed the Arab conquerors as usurpers of their heritage and traditions. The shift in power dynamics under Umar's leadership was particularly stark. The egalitarian ethos of Islam, while spiritually unifying, often clashed with the hierarchical structures deeply ingrained in Persian society. Many Persians, accustomed to a rigid social order under the Sasanian monarchy, struggled to adapt to the more fluid but still Arab-centric governance of the Caliphate. The introduction of the jizya tax on non-Muslims further exacerbated feelings of marginalization among the Persian population, especially those who had not yet converted to Islam. These policies, though pragmatic from Umar's perspective, were perceived by some as a deliberate attempt to diminish Persian influence and autonomy. Abu Lu'lu'a, as a craftsman and slave, occupied one of the lowest rungs in this new order, making him acutely aware of the changes wrought by the Arab conquest. His position likely amplified his resentment, as he not only bore the personal weight of subjugation, but also symbolized the broader discontent of many Persians under Arab rule. The narrative of his grievances, whether tied to a personal tax dispute or broader cultural despair, reflects the collision of two vastly different worlds. For Abu Lu'lu'a, Umar was more than just a ruler. He was the architect of the system that had uprooted his people and disrupted their way of life. This cultural tension was compounded by the political realities of the expanding Islamic empire. The inclusion of non-Arab peoples like the Persians created a mosaic of identities and interests within the caliphate, but it also sowed divisions. Many Persians felt alienated from the Arab-centric power structure, which often prioritized the interests of Arab tribes over those of the newly conquered peoples. This sense of exclusion fostered an undercurrent of resistance that would resurface in various forms throughout Islamic history. Abu Lu'lu'a's actions, though ostensibly those of an individual, can be interpreted as a manifestation of this broader struggle. The assassination of Umar thus holds a mirror to the profound challenges faced by the early Islamic State as it sought to integrate diverse populations. While Abu Lu'lu'a's motivations remain a topic of debate, the cultural and political context in which he acted underscores the complexities of empire building. The Persian response to Arab dominance was not simply a rejection of conquest, but a multifaceted reaction to the disruption of a deeply entrenched civilization. In this light, Abu Lu'lu'a's act of violence, though tragic, was a stark reminder of the enduring scars left by the clash of empires. Conspiracy theories. Abu Lu'lu'a's actions, though carried out alone, have often been analyzed through the lens of potential conspiracies involving larger socio-political factors of the time. His identity as a Persian slave in Medina, representing a group deeply affected by the fall of the Sasanian Empire, made him a symbol of the profound cultural and political shifts that the Arab conquests had brought to the region. The rapid expansion of the Islamic Caliphate under Umar's leadership had not only dismantled long-standing empires like Persia, but also disrupted established social orders, creating resentment among those who had suffered loss of power and privilege. Some historians argue that such an environment of discontent could have made Abu Lu'lu'a a willing or manipulated agent of those who sought to destabilize the caliphate or exact revenge on its leadership. There is speculation that his motivations were not entirely personal, but possibly influenced by individuals or factions who had a vested interest in undermining Umar's authority. The remnants of the Persian elite, who had been relegated to subordinate roles under the new regime, might have seen in Abu Lu'lu'a an opportunity to strike a symbolic blow against the empire that had subjugated them. Similarly, within the Muslim community itself, there were emerging factions and power struggles that could have exploited such an act for their own gain. Umar's strict policies, which prioritized justice and equality over tribal or aristocratic privileges, had alienated some Quraysh elites and other influential figures, potentially giving them a motive to encourage or overlook the plot. Although direct evidence linking Abu Lu'lu'a to a broader conspiracy is lacking, the timing and impact of the assassination make it plausible that it was not entirely coincidental. Umar's leadership had been pivotal in consolidating the Islamic Empire, and his death opened the door to significant political turmoil and debates over succession. The fact that such an event occurred in a period marked by intense cultural, religious, and political transformations adds weight to the theory that his assassination was not merely an isolated act of vengeance, but perhaps a calculated move by forces seeking to disrupt the fragile unity of the early Muslim community. A Persian revenge. The assassination of Caliph Umar has often been linked to the broader impact of the Muslim conquest of Persia and the significant changes it imposed on the Persian socio-political structure. Umar's leadership saw the rapid expansion of the Islamic Caliphate, including the defeat of the Sasanian Empire, which marked the end of centuries of Persian dominance in the region. The conquest dismantled the intricate administrative and cultural framework of the Sasanian dynasty, subjugating the Persian elite and drastically reducing their status and influence. This dramatic shift created a profound sense of loss and resentment among the Persians, particularly those who had enjoyed privilege and power under the old regime. Abu Lu'lu'a, as a Persian slave, may have been a direct product of this upheaval, his personal grievances fueled by the larger collective humiliation felt by his people. His act of violence against Umar can be interpreted as an expression of deep-seated anger and a desire for revenge against the figure most associated with Persia's downfall. While he acted alone in carrying out the assassination, some theorists propose that his motives were shaped by nationalist sentiments or even by encouragement from remnants of the Sasanian elite, who had a vested interest in destabilizing the Islamic Caliphate. These elites, having lost their empire, may have viewed Umar's death as a symbolic blow to the new order that had usurped their legacy. The possibility of such motivations highlights the broader cultural and political tensions that define this era of rapid expansion and integration. The inclusion of conquered peoples like the Persians into the Caliphate's dominion created a complex dynamic of resistance and adaptation. Even as many Persians embraced Islam, the memories of their pre-Islamic past and the trauma of conquest lingered, manifesting in acts of defiance and unrest. Abu Lu'lu'a's actions, whether driven solely by personal animosity or influenced by the grievances of his compatriots, underscore the difficulties faced by the early caliphate in uniting a diverse empire under one rule while contending with the lingering resentment of a proud and sophisticated civilization. Internal opposition within the Muslim community. Umar ibn al-Khattab was a leader of great vision and strength, but his rule was not without its detractors within the Muslim community. While he established policies that were revolutionary for the growing Islamic empire, his focus on egalitarian governance often came at the expense of established elites, particularly among the Quraysh. The Quraysh, who had long held dominance within pre-Islamic Mecca and later as the initial supporters of the Prophet Muhammad, saw their traditional power structures disrupted. Umar's policies aimed at reducing tribal favoritism and prioritizing meritocracy over lineage, which caused resentment among some of the Quraysh elites who felt their influence waning under his leadership. These tensions simmered beneath the surface, with dissatisfaction growing among those accustomed to privilege and authority. Compounding the issue, Umar's administration faced challenges in integrating non-Arab converts to Islam, known as Mawali. The rapid expansion of the Islamic Empire brought people from diverse backgrounds, particularly Persians, into the fold of Islam. However, despite their conversion, many Mawali continued to face discrimination and were often treated as second-class citizens within the Arab-dominated caliphate. They were sometimes excluded from receiving equal treatment in the distribution of wealth and spoils of war, as well as in social status. Umar, while a just ruler in many respects, struggled to fully address these grievances, leading to growing discontent among non-Arab populations who felt marginalized despite their contributions to the empire. The dissatisfaction of both Quraysh elites and the Mawali reflected deeper tensions within the expanding Muslim community. Umar's policies of distributing wealth from conquered territories fairly and his insistence on accountability for even the highest-ranking Muslims created friction. Many who had previously enjoyed unchecked power and influence found themselves under scrutiny, which fostered a sense of alienation. This tension was particularly acute as Umar sought to centralize authority and curtail the potential for corruption or tribal favoritism. While his reforms aimed to ensure justice and equality, they also disrupted established networks of power that had been entrenched for generations. The resentment among certain factions within the Muslim community was not merely a reaction to economic policies or political reforms, but was also rooted in cultural and social dynamics. The Arabs of the Quraysh, accustomed to their central role in the early Islamic movement, struggled with the idea of sharing power and influence with newer, non-Arab converts. This sense of entitlement clashed with Umar's vision of a more inclusive and merit-based governance system, creating underlying fault lines. Similarly, the Mawali, who were integral to the empire's success in fields like administration, commerce, and military service, began to view their exclusion from equal rights as a betrayal of Islamic principles of brotherhood and justice. These internal divisions were further exacerbated by Umar's unyielding leadership style. Known for his stern demeanor and unwavering commitment to principles, Umar was admired by many for his justice, but also feared for his uncompromising approach. His strictness alienated those who sought more leniency or who felt that their grievances were not adequately addressed. This alienation extended to influential figures within the Muslim community, who might have otherwise supported his leadership, but grew frustrated with his refusal to prioritize tribal or familial ties over the broader welfare of the Ummah. In this complex environment of social, political, and cultural tensions, Umar's assassination cannot be seen as an isolated act of violence. It was instead the culmination of frustrations that had been brewing among various factions. While Abu Lu'lu'a's personal motives might have been rooted in specific grievances, his actions resonated with deeper undercurrents of discontent within the Muslim community. The assassination exposed the fragile unity of an empire that was rapidly expanding and grappling with the challenges of integrating diverse populations and managing shifting power dynamics. Hypothetical conspirators. Speculation persists about whether certain prominent figures or factions within Medina might have had foreknowledge of Abu Lu'lu'a's plans to assassinate Umar. The nascent Islamic empire was rife with political and social tensions, and Umar's decisive leadership style, though effective in consolidating power, did not win him universal approval. His reforms, which emphasized egalitarian principles and strict governance, often clashed with the interests of influential Quraysh elites who may have felt marginalized under his administration. These elites, accustomed to wielding significant influence before Islam's rise, may have harbored resentment toward a caliph who prioritized justice over tribal loyalties. The question arises whether discontented individuals or groups exploited Abu Lu'lu'a's personal grievances for broader political ends. Adding to the intrigue is the mysterious background of Abu Lu'lu'a, a Persian slave whose resentment toward Umar had a personal and political dimension. As someone directly affected by the fall of the Sasanian Empire and the subsequent Muslim rule, Abu Lu'lu'a symbolized the cultural and social upheaval caused by Arab expansion. This backdrop raises questions about whether his actions were entirely his own, or whether whispers of rebellion, revenge, or dissatisfaction were subtly encouraged by others in Medina. The rapid spread of Islam brought together diverse groups, some of whom may have viewed Umar's leadership as a threat to their status or aspirations within the new order. These dynamics create fertile ground for theories suggesting a broader conspiracy behind the Caliph's murder. The Islamic Empire at the time was expanding at an unprecedented pace, bringing new wealth, lands, and power into the fold. This expansion inevitably led to competition among tribes, families, and individuals for control and influence. Umar's focus on justice and his imposition of strict financial and administrative reforms aimed to curb corruption, but they also curtailed the ambitions of those who sought to profit from the empire's growth. Among these individuals were some prominent members of the Quraysh, who may have seen Umar's assassination as a way to weaken the central authority and reassert their traditional dominance. In the absence of concrete evidence, the notion of a conspiracy remains speculative. However, the timing and context of Umar's assassination raise intriguing possibilities. Abu Lu'lu'a, a man with no prior history of political involvement, suddenly becoming the assassin of one of the most powerful figures in the Islamic world, has led some historians to question whether he acted entirely alone. Even if no direct collusion occurred, it is plausible that factions within Medina turned a blind eye to his grievances, understanding that his actions could serve their interests by destabilizing Umar's rule. The aftermath of Umar's assassination lends further weight to these theories. His death set off a chain of events that eventually led to political fragmentation and civil war within the Muslim community. The struggle for power among various factions after Umar's passing was marked by bitter rivalries, suggesting that tensions had been simmering long before his death. If any group or individual did conspire, their actions would have aligned with broader historical patterns of power struggles in empires undergoing rapid change and expansion. Umar's assassination, whether planned or opportunistic, ultimately opened the door to these conflicts. The lack of definitive evidence makes it difficult to assign blame or identify co-conspirators with certainty. Yet the political and social climate of the time provides a compelling backdrop for speculation. Umar's assassination was not merely the result of a single man's grievance, but a reflection of deeper divisions within a rapidly growing empire. These divisions, whether coincidental or orchestrated, highlight the fragility of unity in an empire encompassing a diverse array of peoples, cultures, and interests. Betrayal and aftermath, succession disputes. Umar's death marked a pivotal moment in the early history of the Muslim community, leading to profound debates about leadership and governance. As his life slipped away after the assassination, Umar sought to ensure a peaceful transition of power by appointing a 6-member council, or shura, to select the next caliph. This council included prominent companions of the Prophet Muhammad, each respected for their wisdom and closeness to the Prophet. Umar's decision was aimed at avoiding division and conflict, emphasizing collective decision-making and a commitment to unity within the community. Despite his intentions, the succession process revealed underlying tensions that had been simmering since the Prophet's passing. The Shura was composed of figures who represented varying perspectives and interests within the Muslim community. Among them were individuals who had differing visions for the future of the caliphate, reflecting the diversity of opinions about leadership and governance. The deliberations of the Shura were not free from rivalry or political maneuvering. After intense negotiations, the council ultimately chose Uthman ibn Affan, a member of the influential Umayyad clan and a close companion of the Prophet. Uthman's selection was seen by some as a continuation of Quraysh dominance, while others viewed it as a choice rooted in his personal piety and administrative experience. Uthman's appointment did not quell the underlying disputes within the growing Muslim empire. His leadership style, perceived nepotism, and administrative decisions would later become points of contention, leading to accusations of favoritism and alienation among certain groups. The decision-making process of the Shura, while intended to reflect collective wisdom, also revealed the limits of consensus in a rapidly expanding and diverse polity. The seeds of dissent planted during this period would grow into larger conflicts in subsequent years, underscoring the challenges of managing a multi-ethnic, multi-religious empire under a unified Islamic governance. The transition from Umar to Uthman also highlighted the broader questions of legitimacy and authority in the caliphate. While Umar was known for his egalitarian governance and strict enforcement of justice, Uthman's tenure faced criticism for its perceived shift towards consolidation of power within specific tribal and familial networks. This shift contributed to the discontent among various factions, including those who had supported Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, who was also a member of the Shura. The decision not to appoint Ali further fueled tensions that would later culminate in significant sectarian divides within Islam. In retrospect, Umar's effort to create a system that would prevent discord after his death reflects the immense challenges of leadership during a period of rapid expansion and transformation. His assassination left a void that exposed the fragility of the nascent Muslim polity as it grappled with balancing ideals of unity and justice against the realities of political ambition and tribal loyalties. While the Shura succeeded in appointing a successor, the divisions it highlighted would resurface in ways that reshaped the course of Islamic history, leaving an enduring legacy of debate over governance, legitimacy, and the role of leadership in maintaining the principles of the faith. Legacy of Umar's policies. Umar ibn al-Khattab's policies as the second caliph left an indelible mark on the Islamic world, shaping its governance and societal structure for generations. His administration was characterized by a strong centralization of power, ensuring that authority was streamlined under the caliphate. This allowed for more effective decision-making and the implementation of wide-ranging reforms. Umar introduced a bureaucratic system that included registers for military stipends and organized taxation, creating an efficient mechanism for managing the resources of the rapidly expanding empire. His focus on accountability, both for himself and his governors, set a precedent for leadership rooted in justice and responsibility. One of Umar's most enduring legacies was the establishment of a welfare state which aimed to address the needs of the community, particularly the underprivileged. He created a public treasury, Bait al-Mal, to ensure resources were distributed equitably and funded programs to support widows, orphans, and the poor. This emphasis on social justice reflected the Quranic principles of compassion and communal responsibility. Umar's policies also included pensions for veterans and their families, providing financial security and reinforcing loyalty to the state. His initiatives in public infrastructure, such as constructing roads, markets, and water systems, further contributed to societal welfare. Umar also revolutionized the judicial system, emphasizing the rule of law and fairness. He appointed judges, qadis, who operated independently of political influence and ensured that legal matters were adjudicated based on Islamic principles. His approach to justice extended to everyone, regardless of their social or religious status, setting a standard of impartiality. Umar himself was known for personally overseeing cases and ensuring that even the caliph was not above the law. These measures strengthened trust in the administration and provided a framework for legal systems in Muslim societies. However, these reforms were not without controversy and friction. Umar's centralization of power sometimes alienated certain factions, particularly the traditional Quraysh elite, who had grown accustomed to their pre-Islamic privileges. Additionally, his policies toward non-Arabs, Mawali, were often viewed as unequal, as they were not fully integrated into the socio-political fabric of the caliphate. This tension highlighted the challenges of managing a diverse and rapidly expanding empire, where cultural and ethnic disparities required careful navigation. His strict enforcement of moral and religious codes also drew criticism from some quarters as being overly austere. Despite these challenges, Umar's leadership and policies laid the groundwork for a stable and efficient Islamic state, leaving a legacy that resonated far beyond his time. His vision of governance combined pragmatism with piety, ensuring that the caliphate could adapt to the demands of a growing empire while remaining rooted in Islamic values. The tensions his reforms created were a testament to the transformative nature of his leadership, as they forced the Muslim community to confront issues of justice, equality, and governance that would shape its future. Abu Lu'lu'a's fate. After stabbing Umar, Abu Lu'lu'a attempted to flee but was intercepted in the mosque. Accounts differ on his exact fate. Some suggest he was killed by bystanders, while others claim he committed suicide to avoid capture. His violent act and subsequent death marked the end of one of the most pivotal caliphates in Islamic history, leaving behind a legacy of political and religious division. The immediate aftermath of his actions was marked by shock and grief among the Muslim community, as Umar was widely regarded as a just and capable leader whose assassination left a significant void. Abu Lu'lu'a's legacy became a point of contention in Islamic historiography. Among Sunni Muslims, he is almost universally regarded as a villain and a criminal who disrupted the unity of the early Islamic State. His actions are seen as not only a personal vendetta, but also a grievous affront to the institution of the caliphate itself. His assassination of Umar is portrayed in Sunni traditions as a deeply tragic event that deprived the Muslim community of a leader committed to justice, piety, and the consolidation of Islamic governance. In contrast, certain Shia traditions have, over time, come to view Abu Lu'lu'a differently, reflecting the complex dynamics of sectarian history. For some, he is regarded as a symbol of resistance against an administration that, in their perspective, was unjust or illegitimate. This perspective stems from broader Shia critiques of Umar's policies and his role in early Islamic leadership struggles, particularly his involvement in decisions that sidelined Ali ibn Abi Talib, whom Shia Muslims consider the rightful successor to Prophet Muhammad. This stark contrast in perception highlights the deep sectarian divides that have evolved in the Islamic world over the centuries. Abu Lu'lu'a's figure became emblematic of the underlying tensions between Sunni and Shia communities, which would later manifest in more pronounced political and theological disagreements. His actions, though primarily a result of personal grievances, have been reframed and contextualized within these broader historical narratives, often serving as a lens through which historical grievances are understood and articulated. Ultimately, Abu Lu'lu'a's assassination of Umar and his contested legacy underscore the fragile and volatile nature of the early Islamic empire. The event not only marked a turning point in Islamic leadership, but also exposed the challenges of integrating diverse cultural, ethnic, and political groups under a single governance system. Whether seen as a criminal or a symbol of defiance, Abu Lu'lu'a's story reflects the enduring complexities of power, loyalty, and resistance in the formative years of Islamic history. Umar's assassination holds immense significance in Islamic history and can be understood through various dimensions. From a religious perspective, his death is often seen as a martyrdom, a profound loss for the Muslim community during a time of rapid expansion. Umar's leadership had been instrumental in unifying the Ummah, yet his assassination underscored the immense challenges of maintaining cohesion among a diverse population with differing cultural, tribal, and social backgrounds. His policies aimed at fairness and justice were groundbreaking, but not universally accepted, laying bare the fractures within the nascent Muslim empire. Politically, Umar's assassination marked a critical turning point. As the second Caliph of Islam, he had established a strong and centralized leadership that was pivotal in shaping the caliphate's future governance. His death created a power vacuum, leaving the community to grapple with succession and governance issues. The selection of his successor through a council, shura, revealed the underlying divisions among the leading companions of the Prophet, and the incident foreshadowed the civil strife that would later engulf the Islamic world. These political cracks, though not immediately visible, set the stage for future conflicts, particularly the rise of factionalism that would culminate in major civil wars. The cultural dimension of Umar's assassination is deeply intertwined with the broader context of the Arab conquests. The Muslim Empire, under his leadership, had expanded rapidly into territories like Persia, displacing long-standing dynasties and altering the cultural landscape. The resentment among some of the conquered populations, particularly the Persians, was palpable. Abu Lu'lu'a, Umar's assassin, was a Persian slave whose actions can be seen as emblematic of the tensions between the Arab rulers and their new subjects. For the Persians, the fall of the Sasanian Empire meant the loss of their cultural identity and societal dominance, creating a lingering sense of grievance. Umar's reforms, while revolutionary, were not without controversy. His emphasis on equality, including his treatment of non-Arab Muslims, Mawali, challenged traditional tribal hierarchies and privileged positions. Though he sought to establish a just society, some groups felt alienated by his policies, fueling dissent. This discontent, combined with the rapid pace of expansion and the integration of diverse peoples, created an environment ripe for discord. Abu Lu'lu'a's motivations, whether personal or influenced by broader cultural grievances, reflected these growing complexities within the empire. The assassination also highlighted the fragility of unity within the Muslim community. Despite the apparent solidarity during Umar's reign, underlying tensions among the early Muslims, including tribal rivalries and economic disparities, could not be entirely quelled. The rapid acquisition of wealth and land following the conquests exacerbated these divisions. Umar's strong leadership had managed to suppress overt factionalism, but his death laid bare the simmering issues that would later erupt into open conflict during Uthman's caliphate. From a personal perspective, Abu Lu'lu'a's act of murder has been interpreted in various ways. Some historians see him as a lone actor motivated by personal grievances against Umar's administration. Others suggest he was a pawn in a larger conspiracy, possibly linked to disgruntled factions within Medina or remnants of the Sasanian elite. While definitive evidence for such conspiracies remains elusive, the mere existence of these theories highlights the intricate web of alliances and enmities within the early Islamic world. The aftermath of Umar's assassination was marked by significant changes in governance. His meticulous administrative policies, which included the establishment of a welfare state, judicial reforms, and the implementation of a calendar based on the Hijri year, had set a high standard. His death created uncertainty about whether his successors could maintain the same level of justice and efficiency. The task of preserving the empire's cohesion fell to Uthman, whose tenure would eventually be marred by widespread dissent and rebellion. The cultural impact of Umar's death extended beyond the Muslim community. For the Persian population, Abu Lu'lu'a's act became a symbol of resistance against Arab domination. In some later Shia traditions, he is even venerated as a hero, reflecting the deep and lasting divisions that would characterize the Islamic world. Conversely, in Sunni traditions, Umar is celebrated as one of the greatest leaders of Islam, and his assassination is seen as a tragic and unjust event, further fueling sectarian interpretations of the incident. The incident also underscores the human cost of empire building. Umar's leadership had ushered in an era of unprecedented growth, but this expansion came with its own set of challenges. Balancing the needs of a diverse population, addressing grievances from both conquerors and the conquered, and managing internal rivalries proved to be a formidable task. His assassination served as a stark reminder of the difficulties in maintaining such an empire without alienating key groups. Ultimately, Umar's assassination was more than a tragic personal loss. It was a pivotal moment that revealed the complexities of leadership in a rapidly growing and diverse empire. His death forced the Muslim community to confront issues of governance, cultural integration, and political unity in ways that would shape the course of Islamic history for centuries to come. The reverberations of this event continue to influence interpretations of early Islamic history, reflecting its profound and multifaceted legacy. The motives behind Abu Lu'lu'a's assassination of Umar ibn al-Khattab remain a subject of speculation, reflecting the complexity of the political and cultural environment of the time. While some accounts suggest a personal grievance stemming from taxation or labor disputes, others point to larger tensions, such as the resentment of the Persian populace over the Arab conquests that dismantled the Sasanian Empire. These events highlighted the challenges of integrating diverse peoples, cultures, and traditions under the rapidly expanding Islamic Empire. Umar's policies, aimed at centralization and social reform, created a more egalitarian structure but also alienated certain factions, from disaffected elites to newly conquered populations. The assassination revealed how these tensions could culminate in acts of violence, underscoring the fragility of unity in a burgeoning empire. This pivotal moment in Islamic history not only marked the end of a significant leadership era, but also set the stage for future political and social upheavals. Umar's legacy of reform, administration, and governance left an indelible mark on the Muslim world, even as his death exposed the cracks in its foundation. The ensuing debates over leadership and succession, alongside the enduring cultural and political rifts, became defining elements of the Caliphate's history. Abu Lu'lu'a's actions and their aftermath continue to be a lens through which scholars and believers reflect on the trials faced by the early Muslim community, reminding us of the enduring complexities of human governance and coexistence. May peace and blessings be upon you, and may we strive to learn from history to foster unity and understanding. Wa alaikum assalam.